Hannah's story, faith, prayer, and hearing God's voice. Welcome to Bite-Sized Blessings, where we discover obscure and powerful Bible stories that still speak today. Today, we invite you to journey with us into the story of Hannah, a woman of deep faith and patient prayer, and the miraculous birth of her son, Samuel, who would one day hear God's voice calling him in the night. This story is about hope when you feel forgotten, faithfulness in seasons of waiting, and learning to listen when God calls. So, take a deep breath, find a comfortable place, and let's explore this story together. In the days when Israel was led by judges, the nation often drifted from God, and the word of the Lord was rare. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in the hill country of Ephraim. He had 2 wives, Peninnah, who had children, and Hannah, who had none. In that culture, having children was seen as a sign of God's blessing, and not having them brought deep shame and sorrow. Every year, Elkanah would take his family to Shiloh, where the tabernacle of the Lord stood, to offer sacrifices and worship. Peninnah would taunt Hannah, provoking her year after year, reminding her that she was childless, causing Hannah to weep and lose her appetite. Elkanah, trying to comfort her, would say, "Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" But his words, though kind, could not fill the deep longing in Hannah's heart. One year, after they had eaten and drunk in Shiloh, Hannah rose and went to the tabernacle. Her heart was heavy, and in her deep anguish, she wept bitterly and prayed to the Lord. She made a vow, saying, "O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head." As she prayed silently, her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Eli the priest, watching her, thought she was drunk, and said to her, "How long will you go on being drunk? Put away your wine." But Hannah answered, "No, my lord, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord." Eli, realizing his mistake, blessed her and said, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him." Hannah left with hope, her face no longer sad, trusting that God had heard her prayer. In due time, the Lord remembered Hannah, and she conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I have asked for him from the Lord." The name Samuel means God has heard. Hannah had waited, she had prayed, and God answered her faithful prayer. When the child was weaned, Hannah kept her vow. She brought Samuel to the house of the Lord at Shiloh along with sacrifices of thanksgiving. She presented her son to Eli, saying, "For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition that I made to him. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord." And Samuel worshipped the Lord there. Hannah's faith and obedience overflowed into a song of praise, declaring the greatness and holiness of God. She prayed, "My heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord. There is none besides you. There is no rock like our God." She praised God for his power, for how he lifts the humble and brings low the proud, for how he feeds the hungry and gives strength to the weak. Hannah's song would echo in Israel's history, becoming a prayer that would inspire generations. Samuel grew in the presence of the Lord, serving under Eli the priest. The word of the Lord was rare in those days, and visions were not widespread, but God was preparing to speak. One night, while Samuel was lying down in the tabernacle, the Lord called out, "Samuel!" Samuel ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call you. Lie down again." The Lord called again, "Samuel." Samuel rose and went to Eli, saying, "Here I am, for you called me." Again Eli said, "I did not call you, my son." lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel a third time, and he went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." Then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Eli said to Samuel, "Go, lie down, and if he calls you again, you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down. The Lord came and stood, calling as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." The Lord spoke to Samuel, sharing his plans and the judgment that would come to Eli's house. Samuel listened, and from that day forward, the Lord was with him, and all Israel recognized Samuel as a prophet of the Lord. Reflection. Hannah's story is one of faith in waiting. She poured out her soul to God honestly, trusting that He heard her. In her sorrow, she turned to prayer instead of bitterness. When God answered her, she kept her vow and dedicated Samuel to the Lord. Samuel's story is one of learning to hear God's voice. Even though he was young and did not yet know the Lord, when God called, Samuel learned to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." This story invites us to trust God in seasons of waiting and to be ready to listen when He calls us. It reminds us that God hears the cries of our hearts and He is faithful. Practical takeaways. If you are in a season of waiting, know that God sees you and hears your prayers. Like Hannah, you can pour out your heart before God honestly, knowing He cares. Be faithful in what God has placed in your hands, even when answers are delayed. Position your heart to listen for God's voice. Sometimes He speaks in quiet moments, and like Samuel, we can learn to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." God can use your life, your faithfulness, and your prayers to impact future generations, just as He used Hannah's faith to bring forth Samuel, who became a prophet and leader for Israel. Thank you for joining us for this bite-sized blessings episode on Hannah's story. We hope this story encouraged you to trust God's faithfulness and to listen for His voice in your life. If this blessed you, please consider liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with others who would be encouraged by these Bible stories. Until next time, may God's peace and faithfulness be with you, and may you always have a heart ready to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening."